through. You're holding your secrets for way too long. This can't keep going on. With every lie, they keep on hurting you, getting away with everything they do. This can't keep going on. No, we're gonna find them, and I'm gonna fight for you. You better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions.
Hello everyone, happy Sunday and welcome to another episode of Gloves Off. I'm your host, Dr. Kalpana Sundar, and I'm so excited because I'm back in the country. I was actually gone for about 11 days, just got back a few days ago. So honestly, I'm thrilled that I'm actually up at this hour because it's been tough staying up. I've been going to bed at 6 and 7 p.m. like a toddler. But it was a great trip. I actually had gone to Mind Valley University in Estonia, met such wonderful people, had a great experience, gave a great talk out there. It was called Our Future Depends on Women Leading Businesses and Nations. So everything went fabulous, fabulous trip. If you haven't been there to Estonia, I would really recommend going. It is one of the countries that has a female prime minister, as well as Finland, its neighboring country. So I think that's really interesting and it was appropriate for my talk as well. So for those of you who have been watching the show, I always am grateful that you show up every week and watch the show, recommend it to people that you know. And for those of you who are new, Gloves Off is a show about people stripping their ego, understanding each other better, showing up authentically, really doing what they love in the world. I would say that this show for me has many layers. On one layer, and the very most literal layer, it's me just taking off my gloves and, obviously, shedding that for my surgery. And I've done a lot of different things in my life with gloves, but that was the big one, removing my surgical gloves and stepping into a new career. The other part of it was really shedding the ego. And then the last part of it is really about fostering this unity between men and women. So that's what I love about our guests that are coming up today, Dave and Yvette Ulloa. I have to actually make sure I'm saying their name right. But they have just been able to create this wonderful relationship in these businesses. And that's just not something that we really see in this world anymore. So I feel that it really deserves to be celebrated. But before I bring them on, of course, I'm always grateful for our sponsor, Elevated CPA, my accountant, and a great accountant for anyone who is starting a small business, doesn't know how to do their taxes, doesn't want to do their taxes. It's a real pain. But anyway, I'm just grateful to them. And actually in a couple of, probably in the next few months, I'm going to have Tammy Long. We've had Doug Benefield on the show, but we'll have Tammy on as well, his co-founder. All right, welcome back. So are you guys ready to get into our little story now? Because I'm really excited to have these guests on. We've actually I've had them scheduled out for a little while, so I'm super excited about this. But now I got to do my fun drum roll. So let's just bring it on. Well, hello, Dave and Yvette. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Gloves Off. It's so great to have you guys here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us on. Dave and Yvette Ulloa here and Dr. K. We're so excited to be here with you.
We're so happy. Thank you for having us.
Of course. So I did say your name right. That was the one thing I forgot to ask you. I always do I said, wait a minute, I might not have said their name correctly.
You did it perfectly. Sometimes people pronounce it aloha, Ulloa. You did it perfectly. Thank you.
Goodness. Thank goodness. Well, I am so excited to have you on the show because first of all, in your description, I feel like what happens when you put a fiery Latina with a blue collar millionaire? That was my favorite thing I've seen. I was like, what happens? What happens? I gotta know. So I want you guys have done so many different things. As I told you earlier, I'm not a big fan of reading biographies. They're boring. So I want you guys to tell the audience a little bit about yourselves, what you've accomplished, and really just share with them.
Wonderful. Well, we started out being we were not the blue collar millionaire, although I was always a fiery Latina. But we got married in 1999, and Dave was a police officer. I worked for the government for the city of Burbank, and we kind of came together with this amazing dream of having a great life together. And then life just got in the way, and I just remember we were walking around working 10, 12, 14-hour days. He would work graveyard. I worked, 12-hour days, and we were never seeing each other. And we just said one day, something's got to change. Something's got to change.
Yeah. And we kind of followed what we were told to do ever since we were young and little kids. We went to school. We got good grades. We both got college degrees, and we ended up getting good profession. She was a project manager for the city of Burbank. I became a police officer with the LAPD, thinking that I was going to make a difference and I was going to protect and serve with LA. And after a decade of doing that, we found ourselves $70,000 in credit card debt, on the verge of a bankruptcy, on the verge of a foreclosure. And we both had 2 six-figure incomes. And now with all the stress that was happening, we were also on the verge of a divorce. And we thought to ourselves, how did we end up here? We're good people. We work really hard. We live in America, the land of the free, the home of the brave. How are we living the American nightmare? And the pivotal point for me personally was, this is my beautiful queen. I married her. She's my angel. She saved my life in so many different ways. But we just couldn't get along, and we couldn't figure it out. And all the stress that was happening, we just thought we'd be better apart. And then one day she ends up in the hospital, and the doctor comes in and he says, you have 2 ulcers. And if you keep doing whatever is causing all the stress in your life, then you're lucky to make it to 50 years old with all the stress that you have. And she was working for the city of Burbank, so she was a slave to the city. And I just remember sitting in the hospital and hearing that. And she was my number one. She was my queen. And something triggered in me that realized, if we keep doing what we're doing, I might not have my queen any longer. I got to stop blaming everybody else in the world. I got to stop blaming my boss, blaming my job, blaming my degree, blaming the government, blaming everything, what happened to me when I was 6 years old. And I got to start taking responsibility, because if we're going to change this situation, then we have to change. And that's when we started diving deep into personal development and learning what is really going on behind the scenes. Why do we do what we do? Why do we have certain thoughts, certain emotions, and take certain actions? And through that journey of personal development, the one thing I will share that saved us is we both decided to grow together. It wasn't like I was just going to grow. Every time I would listen or read a book, she said, give me that book. You're not going to grow without me. And she would listen or read that book as well.
Yeah, and Dr. Kalpana, it was the best decision we could have made. We jumped into entrepreneurship. We failed forward. We tried 3 different big businesses, investments. We failed. We sold everything we had to just start entrepreneurship because we knew the sacrifice would be worth it. And it was business number 3 after 2 failed stories that we started just building something so big that became a 15-year journey and an explosion around the world. So all those lessons and all those hardships, we're talking about taking the gloves off today. It was not easy.
No, it never is.
No.
It never is. But I have to say that so much of what you said, like you packed so many valuable lessons in just those, like, I don't know, a couple of minutes. And so I want to just unpack that for a minute because it's a lot. You were on the verge of divorce. You both decided to stay together and you made it work. It's so rare that people do that because they grow apart and they don't grow together. Then you both made that decision to grow together. And you call her your queen. I love that. I think right now we have a real disease in society that we think our jobs are the most important thing in the world. We think money is the most important thing in the world. One thing that I want to share is that when I was in Europe, I've been to Europe many times, but just every time I go, I see something different because my perspective shifts. I watched men and women walk around in Europe. They're holding hands. They're looking at each other in the eyes. I watch men and women walk here. They are in a hurry. They're not connected. They're looking at their phones. I went to restaurants. People are connecting. They're talking. They're looking at each other's eyes. You go here, everybody's on their phone. We have a real problem in this country, and it's perpetuating the things that were led to your divorce. I really think it was the same things that led to my divorce, all the stress, we get disconnected. I wasn't able to save my marriage. And, I think we all have a different path, but I just love what you guys stand for because it's so important for men and women to really come together. There's a lot of this crap out there. Like, I don't need a man. I don't need a woman, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with any of that. I think we all need each other. So anyway, that's my soapbox story. I want to confirm that it's so important what you're doing, and I love it. So tell us a little about the mistakes that you made. Like what changed on business number 3 that just went, boom, it worked.
Yeah. So a couple of things we asked ourselves this question. And the first question was, does my partner have my best interests at heart? Because what we find is sometimes that partners think that a relationship is a tug of war and it's got to be a win-lose situation, whether it be a small argument or a big decision. And we both realize that we both love each other and we want the best for each other. We may be going out about it a different way, but I'll never forget an event that we went to. And we were just wobbly. We had made a decision that we're going to figure this out, but we didn't know how we were going to figure it out. And we went to this big event. And at the time, I had a lot of unresolved wounds from my past. So I was a super pleaser. I was the nice guy. And it was a perfect fit for her in the beginning because she was a very strong, decisive, powerful, smart, beautiful woman. And I was the yes man. So in the beginning, that was awesome.
Perfect. I could boss him around and he would do everything I wanted him to.
Been there, done that.
So I started to resent him.
So we go to this event, and the event was 7 days, and we go to register. And when we go to get our name tags, we get ready to sign in, and we tell them our names, and they give us name tags. And on the name tags, it had the teams that we were on. And we were on different teams. And so Yvette talks to the lady, and she says, "Excuse me, I think you guys made a mistake. We're married. We should be on the same team. Why are we on different teams?" And the lady says, "Well, no, we do that on purpose because we really want you guys to go through your own experience, because a lot of times if partners are together, they don't fully participate because they start to hold back. So at the end, you guys can come together, but it's best if you do this separately." And she goes, No.
Fiery Latina here. We paid you. You're going to do what we tell you. You're going to put us on the same team. Okay?
And the lady looks at us and she looks at me, and I was so like the pleaser. I don't want to ruffle any feathers and make her mad. So I'm just like, whatever she says goes. And she says, "Are you sure you want to do it?" And Yvette says, "Yes, we paid you. We want to be on the same team." So she puts us on the same team, but it goes even further because now we're on the same team. And when we get on the same team, there was a leader that was putting everybody in partner pairs. And they said, "Okay, we want you guys to be in partners. And on the count of 3, we want you to pick a partner that you don't know and that you just randomly pick because you energetically feel that that's going to be your best partner for this event. And Yvette and I are standing together right next to each other. And they go, 1, 2, 3. And she grabs me by the arm and she goes, you're my partner.
I picked you.
What am I going to say? No, I don't want you to be my partner. I'm like, you hear the rules? Okay, we're partners.
Yeah, it sounds like you'd be scared.
Yeah, and it was out of my need for certainty, because I needed to, at the time I was insecure. I needed to control my environment. I was afraid of the unknown. And so I was like, you are mine and I am yours. And so I look back now, and that decision, you talk about some of the mistakes you guys made. That was in the middle of our first entrepreneurship journey. That was one of the biggest mistakes, and it was one of the biggest blessings. Because what happened after that?
So now we're partners, and day 2 was all about relationships. And the teacher had told us, what I want you to do is I want you to write down on one side of the paper, draw a line in the middle, and on one side write everything that you will not settle for, that you don't want in your relationship, everything you want to avoid. And then on the other side, write your dream relationship, what your part, from as many details, how they would treat you, what they would look like, the values, the belief, everything you can think of, right on the other side. And so we do this whole exercise, and then he says, great, we want partner A to share with partner B. And so we're partners. And all of a sudden, she starts sharing all these things that I am not. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, that's not me who she's describing. And then partner B switch and share with partner A. And as I'm sharing, she wouldn't be controlling. She wouldn't be jealous. She would trust me. She would not, everything. And all of a sudden, I just hear her as I'm reading. She starts bawling, like ugly crying, that she stands up as I'm talking and she runs out of the room.
I just realized at that moment, because when I was reading, I was like, he would be more masculine. He would, take ownership of our marriage. He would lead our family. But then I wasn't creating the space for him to lead our family because I wouldn't let him. But this was all subconscious. And so I ran to the back of the room and I'm thinking, this is it. This is over. Our marriage is done. And the coach stops me. She said, you need to hear the rest of the information. And I said, I'm sorry. I have manipulated all along. I'm so insecure. I need some help. Can you separate us? I manipulated this whole thing to be in the same team with my husband. And I understand now. Can you help us out? And so they separated us. They put us into the right teams. And I just, okay, God, I hear you. I'm opening up my heart. I'm surrendering to what I'm learning at this moment. And that was one of the biggest turn points in our life, because we learned partnership. We learned true partnership.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine how hard that would have been to have stayed there in this group of people listening to that. I mean, that is tough. And I could just feel how that must have been for you. But you're right. I feel like it is a big blessing, because in that moment you realize what you're doing. And then I assume from there, you had a starting point from how to work things out.
Yes, there was a breakthrough there, because from the stage, the teacher basically said to somebody else that he was talking to, because at this moment I was in my head thinking, oh my God, are we going to get a divorce? Did I marry the wrong person? I was so in my head because of what was happening. And I didn't understand the dynamic of how we had flipped polarization. She became more of the masculine and I became more of the feminine in our relationship. And she loved it in the beginning. But then over time, she started resenting me, because she was like, where's my man? Where's my husband? Where's my provider? Where's my protector? The decision maker of our family. She was so overwhelmed with making all of the decisions. And I didn't feel like I had the courage or the space to make the decisions, because a few times that I did, she got hurt and she lashed out. And so we just kind of left it that. So for years and years and years. So when we were there, he was talking to somebody else. I'll never forget. I'm so in my head and I love her, but I'm thinking she's now with somebody else and I'm with a new partner. And he said something that changed my life forever. And he used colorful words, but he said this to somebody else that he's talking to. He said, why don't you make a freaking decision, you wussy? And I swear I could have thought he was talking to me. And it went right from my head into my heart. And I was like, oh my God, he's right. She's my queen. She's my angel. She's my soulmate. I married her for a reason. We are going to figure this out. And from that place is when we went what truly makes an unshakable relationships. And what we found was so opposite of what today's modern society and media teaches people.
So I want to ask you a question, and just going back to this masculine and feminine. I mean, you literally just described my marriage. 100%. I'm a female surgeon. Imagine what that's like. Talk about control freak. I mean, I didn't give my ex-husband any space to really make decisions, and I mean, again, it started out in the beginning like that was great because I could just do whatever, and he was very kind and wanted to please me. But later, after years went by, then it was like, oh God, I'm tired of making all the decisions. So it's just so important for us to remain in our feminine. Now, obviously through personal growth and everything now, I understand what I've done. And I think a lot of women face that. We are quick to blame men for not showing up and being masculine, but we're not creating the space for them. So that's so important. So I want to know how you did that. Like, was there a process? Was there a program? What were the first steps that you took?
That is a fantastic question, Dr. Kalpana. That set us on a journey of researching and searching for the best teachers in the world. So we became platinum partners with Tony Robbins, and we sat down with him and said, who are the people you are learning from? Or you're teaching relationships here. Who are they? And we went and met with those people and we started learning from them directly. So we went through rigorous certification processes with multiple of his teachers because we were so curious as we got to figure this out. We are not going to become a statistic. We had a covenant mindset. We were like, I don't care if we run into walls in the process. We're going to figure this out. I guess God gave us a certain amount of hard-headedness where we were like, and it took us a good 10 years to find out all the answers and rewire our marriage, and me honor him as the masculine, but him like honoring me like the queen and the feminine, and us. I dance between the masculine. I gotta be in my masculine to run our business, but guess what? I know when to make that space and do that dance between the two, that I don't need to run in my masculine at home anymore. And so we have an amazing dance of partnership. And that is the reason we created Warriors and Queens, because we wanted to take those 10 to 14 years and crunch the time frames so that people can learn. If they are ready to have an incredible partnership, they can come in and learn in as little as 4 months from us, crunch their time frames, learn everything: partnership, passion, and purpose. Those are the 3 pillars of every successful relationship.
I love that. I really, really love that. And I want to actually go back to some of the things you said, because I think you had already, if I remember correctly, you'd already started your business while this was happening, correct? So I want to point out, because so many of us are stuck, I like to call it the matrix, we're just stuck in this like conventional paradigm of how things are supposed to be. And that system really doesn't work for any of us, really. I mean, that was why I knew I needed to be an entrepreneur, because even at a young age, I knew that wasn't going to work for me. But think about it. If you didn't pursue entrepreneurship, you wouldn't have had the resources, most likely. I mean, you would have been in debt. Once you're in debt, you have no way out to fix your freaking life. And that's something people don't understand. They think it's security, it's security, it's security. I got a job, I got a job, I got a job. But that's not security. You've got handcuffs is what you bought yourself. And the true security comes from, no matter what the freaking hell happens in this world, I got me. Because, like you, I've been through a lot of crap, and I've come through it, and I have so much faith in myself. So it's really important to note that your ability to put that money and that time into self-development over a decade that saved your marriage, got you into a great position in your life, came from a very bold step to go into entrepreneurship, I would say. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And it's funny you bring up the word matrix, Dr. Kalpana, because, and I'm going to respectfully disagree with you with one thing, that nobody wants to be in the matrix. The people that do are people that do want to be in the matrix. And those are the ones that don't want to take responsibility. They want other people to think for them. They want other people to take care of them. And they want other people to tell them what to do because they don't have the energy or the time or the effort to really go after their goals and dreams. But for those that want to step out of the matrix, like I'm sure the people that watch your podcast, we made a decision that we're going to think for ourselves. We're going to research and find what's true for us. And we're going to try a bunch of things to see, and what actually works, we'll actually implement in our life, in our relationship. As an example, the main thing that helped us to flip our polarity back, and that's one of the things that we see as the major cause of a lot of separation and divorces in relationships today, is couples that flip polarity. The main thing, number one, when women start to reclaim and build their feminine self-worth of that nurturing, that loving, and not that it's weaker or less than men. As a matter of fact, most women can wrap men around their finger if they're truly in their essence, and they can work from feminine to masculine. If they're in work, they can access their masculine. But in the intimate relationship, the number one thing that a man needs is for a woman to be able to receive his devotion. And if she can't receive his devotion, he doesn't feel like the hero. He doesn't feel like the man. So he starts to diminish himself and look elsewhere, whether it be at work, career, or sometimes even an affair. So when a woman starts to build that feminine self-worth and starts to honor who she is, that changes the game, because she starts to treat her man differently. She starts to see him differently. And same thing with a man. When a man starts to build his masculine self-worth, which is what? A masculine man is all about leading, is all about providing, protecting, and procreating. And the moment that they reclaim that in a relationship, that's where intimacy can start rebuilding again.
Oh, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. And it's so true, because we women now, we're so confused. You know, we're now in the workspace, and then we have to be mothers, and we have to be wives, and we don't know how to do that beautiful dance between the masculine and feminine. I know I didn't know how to turn off the masculine. I mean, I'm in the OR. I have to be very masculine. I'm running a big business. I have to be very masculine. And then I'd come home and I'd be very masculine. And my kids have said to me, you know, I actually interviewed my eldest son on Mother's Day because it's gloves off. I mean, you can call me out, buddy, you know, is what I told him. So he said he didn't feel emotionally like I was emotionally available for him. He's like, now that's not the case. He's like, I'm really good friends with both of my sons, because they're both beautiful young men, you know? So I've really, as I've learned this dance, I've taught them those things. But it's just really, really important for us to understand this, because I didn't know it could have saved my marriage. It could have helped me have a better relationship with my children back then. You know, I mean, I was able to fix that at least, but sometimes it's not fixable.
Yeah. And you are so right, Dr. Kalpana. As we build our careers, our success, raising children, they're all very masculine traits, right? Well, we have to be in our masculine to protect our kids, to make sure they're on a timeline, to make sure they go to school, they do their homework. But what happens is we disconnect from our emotions and our feelings. That is where our superpower is. We hear things like, don't feel, don't cry, like, don't be weak. We see that as weakness, where our emotions are our superpower. And we hear from the men in our life, don't cry, you're over emotional, you're this or that. He's learned to he knows that's my superpower. So he's like, babe, tell me how you feel. And I'm like, oh my God, like finally I feel seen, I feel connected, I feel that deep connection. But it took us a good 10 years to rebuild that and learn, because partnership is counterintuitive. What we think the other sex wants is actually the opposite. And so it's a mind twist to be able to give your partner what they need, in terms of it's not what we need. It's completely different. And so that's what we teach. We teach partnership because it's counterintuitive, but it's one of the most fulfilling things that couples learn.
Well, you got me sold. When I'm in a relationship, if I start to have any kind of problems, come to you guys ASAP. I'm not letting the same thing happen again. But for me, you know, I just feel like I changed a lot. I wanted different things. So, you know, but these are such great things to know, because it allows you to evaluate that situation and is it salvageable? I mean, when we went to counseling, I mean, our counselor didn't give us any kind of great information like this. I bet you if we had, who knows what could have happened, Honestly,
Yeah.
we didn't have information like this available. Our counselor just looked at us and didn't know what the heck to do.
Well, yeah, it's funny you bring that up, Dr. Kalpana, because I think that's what makes us a little bit unique and different. And we have a lot of couples that come to us that have tried multiple counseling. And the challenge with counseling is most counselors, they're good people. They try their best. But most of the information that they're providing is they read it out of a textbook. They haven't actually lived it and gone through it. And so for us, every almost decade, there's been some chaos and some conflict in our relationship that we almost called it quits. And from that, we learned so much about the dynamics of relationships, of how to turn it around. So we are not perfect people. We know that conflict is not going to be ever gone from a relationship. It's how do you deal with conflict when it shows up? That's going to determine, and has a lot to do with polarity, that's going to determine whether a couple stays together long term or not. And I go back to what we started with. If two people believe that one doesn't have their best interests at heart, that they're coming from ego, or they want to have a win-lose situation, then that's where the chaos starts to happen. If you think about and imagine between a couple that every day there are bricks being laid in between you, and these bricks are being laid with little things, a wrong tone or a wrong statement or a disappointment, or they said they were going to do this and they didn't do that, but we don't think it's big enough to actually talk about it or check in with each other. These bricks start to build up. The bricks of feeling irritated and then frustrated and angry, which a lot of times men feel when their women lead them, but they don't know how to put language to it because they're designed to lead. But if they're constantly being told what to do or being mothered, it starts to diminishes them. On the other side, for women, as the bricks started getting laid, they feel anxiety, they feel irritated, and then they feel so overwhelmed because they're like, well, I got to make all the decisions. I got to do everything from here to there, and you're not doing anything. And as those bricks are being laid, for most couples, when they get so high and so thick, they don't even recognize each other. They don't know how to communicate. So here's the key. Every day we teach our couples, check in with each other. Share with each other what's going on throughout your day, what's happening at work, what's happening between you. Check in. Hey, is everything okay? Are you good? So that you sweep those bricks away every single day so they don't have a chance to build.
That's beautiful. I love that analogy, and it's so true because there's so many little irritants when you live with somebody for a long period of time and you just don't bother mentioning them, and it's a huge thing. But I actually, and tell me if I'm right or wrong about this, I believe that once you actually get through these obstacles that kind of started to drive you apart, if you can actually make it past them, that relationship becomes stronger and stronger. I mean, I know personally I've had this happen in relationships. If it's a good one, I mean, I was with my ex-husband for 27 years. So I mean, it was a long time. But even with friendships, like sometimes we'll have a little issue. I actually like when those issues happen because it tells me a lot about that person, how that issue is resolved, how we're able to resolve it. Typically, in my experience, once that issue occurs, if it's able to be resolved because both parties care about each other enough to make it work, then that relationship is, like, for me, one that I never want to let go because it becomes stronger. And I feel that's the same thing that seems to be happening with you. You find these obstacles, you work through them, and you build a stronger foundation. Those bricks don't have a damn chance.
Well, Dr. Kalpana, I'm going to have to call another. There's no way you were married 27 years. Look how young you look. Are you kidding me?
I was married at 2. A funny joke. So when my son is 25, my oldest son, right? So when we go places together, people often think we're together. But sometimes I like to joke and tell him to tell everybody he's adopted because I don't want people doing the math. We actually went to this retreat together, and when I told him we walk in, and before we walk in, I said, "Oh yeah, wait, you're adopted." And he looks at me because we look so much alike. That's the great part when you can be silly with your kids. I love that. They just look at me like, whatever, mom. So, I mean, Warriors and Queens is awesome, but I want to hear a little bit more. I mean, and I love this whole concept. I could probably talk the whole hour just on this, but I'm really interested to hear about this path with Tony Robbins that you guys took. I mean, aside from, because you were interviewed by him as well, so that must have been quite the experience. So I want to hear a little bit about that, and I'm sure our audience would too.
Oh, absolutely. We had no idea who Tony Robbins was. I was working for the city of Burbank. We went to a Chamber of Commerce event where they had a silent auction, and we thought it was a meditation CD. We had no idea. And he bid $40 for that 7-day CD. And I am telling you, Dr. Kalpana, that CD started changing his life, because at the time he was a police officer working in some of the most dangerous areas. He starts listening to this and there's a pep in his step. And I'm like, why are you so happy? He's like, this CD is amazing. So then I'm like, give it to me, because you're not going to change without me. We had to think, like, we do not change without the other. And all of a sudden, after a few months, we ended up at a Tony Robbins event. And we were brand new entrepreneurs. We're not making a big amount of money. But they say if you dream it and you really put the focus and the discipline towards your dreams, one day. And so we went to this platinum partner meeting, and we showed up, and we were all threatened by all these millionaires and multimillionaires. And we were like, we're going to act as if one day we're going to join this. And so we got the applications, and we interviewed a few platinum partners to see what they did, because we were brand new entrepreneurs. Year after year, we went to this platinum partner meeting until 2010.
So Platinum Partners for Tony Robbins is his elite of the elite. It costs $65,000 per year per person to be a part of Platinum Partners. And you get to travel around the world, go to all of his events, and travel with Tony 3 times a year to different places. And each vacation is a service project where you contribute. It's a learning theme. And then you get to network with some of the most amazing people that play life at that high level. So for years and years, we wanted to do it. Finally, our business took off. And in 2010, we hit a financial goal that we joined Platinum Partners, and we started traveling around the world with Tony Robbins. The first one we went to was in Scotland, and it was a relationship theme. And Yvette and I we loved each other, but we were going through some challenges. And he did about a 2.5-hour intervention with us with a small group of about 100 people. And I actually have a short little clip of a video they captured for the recap video from that experience. But that was also just another nudge and another spark that we have so much work to do. And we came from a place of, this is amazing what we're learning from Tony. But if we are experiencing this, there's got to be a whole bunch of other people that might be experiencing this. So the way Yvette and I, and we're both like this, is that we want to learn and grow for ourselves, but we also do it as we listen and we learn on how we can help other people. And so the Tony Robbins experience is really what sparked us. So we went to Scotland, we went to Fiji, we went to Egypt and Israel with Tony Robbins, got to spend a lot of personal time with him. Side note, for those of you that may be skeptical of Tony Robbins, I'm just telling you, Tony Robbins is like he is on stage, that intense, just unbelievable knowledge, wisdom, wanting to serve and help you have a breakthrough, like he is in real life, to the point where we're on a bus ride and he can't turn it off. And he's just working with me. I'm just like, oh my God, this guy's amazing.
Well, that's great though, because a lot of times when you see these people on TV, or, you see them and hear about them, you have this one perception of their persona, and then you actually meet them in real life. I actually had a similar experience recently, and I was like, wow, this is not what I expected. So it's really disconcerting. So it's wonderful that he is the same, and it sounds like it was worth every bit of that expense for you, for the amount that it
life-changing, Dr. Kalpana. It was actually what cultivated in us the dream to start our company, Warriors and Queens, because we were so touched by that intervention in our relationship. And he does so little on relationships, because obviously he's a success teacher. Right. Nobody else is doing it on relationships. And we're like, we're going to take that baton and we're going to show people that they can have true partnership, a successful business career, and they don't have to sacrifice that to have true love, which is what we see happen all the time. Women, they miss that connection, that deep soul connection with their partner, and they end up giving up love to have success. But we're going to teach people that they don't have to do that. And so that year with Tony Robbins, We jumped out of bridges into rivers with him. We had a private party by the pyramids of Giza that they had not been allowed to have parties there in over 30 years. He knows the precedent. We participated in peace negotiations in Israel. I mean, the kinds of things, I get chills because it was a year that changed our canvas of our life. And now we have something similar with our warriors and queens.
But if I can add this to Dr. Kopana, I think that, thank you for sharing that, because it just brings back the memories. I think the biggest benefit that we got from being a part of Platinum Partners was the peer group that we surrounded ourselves with. It uplifted us, it stretched us, it inspired us. And that's why with our warriors and queens, we're doing something similar where we're building a community of people that want to play life, especially in the area of relationships, at the highest level. So much so where when people come into our community, they go back to their homes and their families and their friends, and they tell them, listen, if you still want to be our friends, you have to go to Warriors and Queens, because how you're treating each other, you're diminished, you're going to end up broke. So we need, they tell them to come to that.
I love it. I love it. It's great. Well, I was at Mind Valley, the last 2 weeks, and when one of the speakers said this, and I don't remember which one, but he said that in your life, you should have 33% of the people that you know that are above you. You should have 33% of the people at your level, and then 33% that you help pull up. Now, I actually respectfully disagree with that a little. I think that because the reality is the energy that it requires to pull people up is a significant energy expenditure. So I really feel that it should probably be 5% of those people, because I don't know personally, every time I'm pulling somebody up, it's a huge expenditure on my part energetically. And maybe it's different for other people. I don't know. I can only speak for myself. But it's a good analogy to keep in mind, because that's the thing. You have to look at who you're surrounding yourself with. If you surround yourself with people who have bad relationships and they're not treating each other nicely, you're going to be one of them. If you surround yourself with people who are broke, you're going to be broke. If you surround yourself with people who are spiritually numb and have no emotion, that's what you're going to be. And, we have to really be conscious of these things. It's so important. I mean, this is why my parents didn't like me hanging out with certain people in high school, I think. Now I get it, but back then I didn't understand. And then what I also love about what you guys do is you give so much back. I mean, so it sounds like, you've gone through your struggle, you found a way out of it. And of course, life hits you with different problems along the way, and you figure those out. And then you have this ability, because of your journey into entrepreneurship, to be with Tony Robbins for a whole freaking year. That sounds like so fabulous and an amazing experience altogether. And now you've taken that and not only incorporated it for your couples that you help, but also how did you start this foundation? Because you also have this foundation for children. So I want to hear a little bit about that too.
Absolutely. The name of our foundation is Chosen Greatness. And, it's a verse from the Bible that says, many are called, but few, sorry, my little dog wanted to make an appearance. But many are called, few are chosen. And we really, really believe that from that Bible verse, that we also have to, as humans, choose to step into our greatness. And so many people fall behind. They, fall into the whole matrix of becoming reactive to life rather than being proactive in your goals, your dreams, and doing whatever it takes to get there. And that's what we did. Like we always tell people, there were people that were at that Tony Robbins event that did not change their marriage. There were people that were at those Tony Robbins yearly events that did not change their success. What was the difference? We always apply what we learn and we get into action. And so our foundation was born from that. And then we had a crisis happen to us in 2010, the same year that we joined Platinum Partners with Tony Robbins. The highs and the lows of life. Dave's father was killed in a tragic motorcycle accident. He was just driving his motorcycle to work, and a big rigger didn't see him. And basically, dad left us. And so when you have tragedy in your life, you can allow that tragedy to basically run you over, and now you can be miserable for the rest of your life. But Dave, I just really admire and respect, because he was like, we're going to find a gift in this. I know Dad would want us to find a gift. Yeah,
and he was my hero, Doctor. Okay. And when he died, I was so mad at the world. I was mad at God. I was mad at my dad. I was so mad for several weeks. And then I remembered this belief that we truly have at our core, that the greatest challenge can also be your greatest gift if you find the lessons in it. And as we started asking better questions and praying, I remember this whole dynamic. I won't go into the long story, but to make a long story short, through some friends, we found out about a church that had several kids that they needed to raise money in order to start an orphanage. And my dad always told me, if I die, don't worry about buying flowers or having people spend flowers, because flowers die. So if they want to donate to a good cause in my name. And so we put that call out there that there was a church that needed money to raise for an orphanage. And we put it out to our community. If you want to donate to my father, donate in his honor to help start this orphanage. And we raised $35,000 in a short period of time. And we helped start an orphanage in Cuenca, Ecuador, called La Esperanza, which in Spanish, it means hope. And when we started that orphanage, we ended up having 65 kids in 2 different homes that we helped raise that money. And I remember the thought in a dream came to me that my father left this earth to help save 65 children. So his death was not a loss. It was actually a gift. And that changed everything. So we went there several years in a row to help build the homes and fix the homes and serve the kids and everything like that. But it was truly one of those things. So Chosen Greatness Foundation is all about raising money to help kids in 3 areas of life. She grew up with a family that were musicians and entertainers. I grew up with a family that were athletes and in sports, and we both changed our life through personal development. So we bring in inner cities and low income families, we bring music, entertainment, training, as well as sports, athletic training, and also personal development, which is just basic personal development skills that should be taught in the schools, but they're not. And so that's what we do for kids.
That's amazing. I love that. And do you know, I would say, wouldn't you agree that sometimes when you're about to do something big in your life, that's when some kind of tragedy occurs to just derail you? I've seen this happen numerous times in my life, and I started to take note of it, and I got to the point where I said, I'm not going to let it derail me. And I had a similar situation. I was actually about to publish my book, and, right around then, my mom wasn't doing well and she passed away. And I said, I'm not stopping. She would want me to finish this. And so I did, and I didn't stop. And I think this is what happens in life. We have tragedies and we just stop doing what we're doing and we just go backwards. And if we just maybe prevail through it for a little longer, we can get to the other side. So I think that's really important for our audience to hear, because I'm sure we're not the only one who have faced some sort of tragedy, some sort of problem, right? When is the least, it's never a good time, but I think there's worse times, and that's how it usually goes down. And I love how you turned that into something beautiful, that your father passed away to give this beautiful life to these children. And also, what you do is so important. I mean, not only for relationships, this is something I've thought about for a very long time. Whenever there's instability in the family unit, obviously, between parents, it affects the children. And then those children have dysfunctional relationships, et cetera, et cetera. It perpetuates. So what you're doing is so pivotal in stopping that cycle. And I think about this because I want to help. My thing is helping women rise into leading more businesses and nations and all of those things. And we have so many things that block us from getting there. And when that woman isn't right, her children aren't as great as they could be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it perpetuates. So what we're doing is we're trying to stop this perpetuation of all the negatives in the world and start to create something positive. And it takes a village. It takes all of us doing our part, right? So the more people we have coming together to fix what's wrong, I think, the world will be a better place to live.
100%.
So your, any other, I'm thinking, there was something else I wanted to ask you. And of course, now it's not coming to me. I had my little notes. Let me look here. Oh, with your personal story of when you realized, in that moment when you were taking the understanding of, wow, I'm this way. And for you, Dave, you're like, oh, wow, this is what she thinks about me. How did you turn that that painful moment? I mean, I know you have a process and everything, but internally, I mean, like, how did you step back from receiving that as painful and an assault or something like that? How did you step back into something positive in that moment? Because I mean, people are around you, you're in this event. I mean, I feel like that would be a really, really hard thing for people to do. So how did you transition that in that moment?
Yeah, so in that moment, luckily we were on different teams and with different partners. And that event usually would go 12 to 14 hours a day for 7 days. And then we would obviously be sleeping in the same room, but we were hardly in the room because we'd be up in the morning, and it was a pretty intense thing. So from what I remember, there was a lot of tension, a lot of uncertainty, but the decision was made that we were going to figure it out. And we both decided we're going to go all in on all the processes that are happening here. And then leaving here, we're going to go on a journey of discovering ourselves, because the number one thing that we believe helped us was we basically decided to clean up our side of the street, as opposed to just blaming our partner, judging our partner, and thinking that they're the one that needs to change. We both made the conscious decision. Listen, I know there's some stuff that I'm doing that's causing the distance in our relationship and the chaos. And she said the same thing. I know there's some things that I'm doing. We don't know what it is right now, but we're committed to figuring it out.
And that takes a lot of dismantling one's ego, right? You have to really be able to dismantle that ego and start looking at yourself in a really real way, you know, and exposing your shadows, which really is not an easy thing to do. But I commend you, because I would say that I feel I've done a lot of this over the past couple of years, you know, just really understanding why I function the way I do, why certain things trigger me. And now what's so beautiful is that triggers don't trigger me in the way that they used to. Like, I'd act like a crazy person and, you know, react and et cetera, and do, you know, say things that I wish I didn't. Now to me, a trigger is like, ooh, okay. So that triggered me. I wonder why that triggered me. So I love the fact that I'm actually able to remain calm through these things that trigger me and really investigate why they trigger me so much. What is that saying about me? Why is this triggering me, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's such a beautiful part of the process, because that's really how we get to know ourselves. And a lot of times it's something that happened years ago, et cetera. It's just something we don't even think about. Like you were saying, things that happened when you were 6 years old are coming up now.
Absolutely, Dr. Kalpan. And actually, that's one of the modules we teach in our academy. It's so funny that you spoke about that. And so few people have the awareness that a trigger is something of our own. But we teach something called the freedom path, that when you trigger because of something that happened with your partner, it's because he's exposing an area of life where you are not yet free.
Right.
The partner is exposing an area of your life where you need freedom. And so we take them to a whole process where you become free of that trigger from your childhood that's causing you to not have a great relationship. And so being at cause instead of effect, going down that freedom path truly, truly gives you that freedom.
Yeah, and that's the partner's job, right? To expose all that crap that you don't want to look at. And then you're like, I love this person, but they're making me look at all the shitty, crappy things in myself that I just really don't want to see.
That's right.
Yeah.
It feels very unfair, honestly. I'm like, who designed this program? But it's fine. Luckily, we have people like you to help us, you know, navigate through these things.
100%. So here's what happens in a relationship when you really learn that and you become conscious of what's going on, and you realize that people in conflict are always going to be in our lives. People in conflict bring conflict in our lives to expose areas that we are not yet free. So back in the day, before we understood this, it would always be an I'm sorry if I triggered her or she triggered me. I'm sorry for doing that. Today, because we know the difference, it's now you're welcome.
I love it. I love it. That's great. I think that's so cute. I think I'm going to use that too. Learned a lot of things today, so this is fabulous. So I've got your website on that's scrolling down there, and you guys have a special gift for the audience, right? So I want you to just tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. If you go to the website that is listed right there, warriorsandqueens.com/3 steps, we're going to give you a free gift because you are an amazing friend of Dr. Kalpana. So it is a master course, and it's titled, Are You Ready to Turn Your Troubled Relationship into a Love Story? Learn the jaw-dropping solutions. Whether you're not in a relationship or maybe you were in a past relationship and want to have it to be different this time, download our master course. It's a PDF ebook, 3 different videos, and each one is going to bring you bigger awarenesses of how to create that dream relationship in your life.
Oh, I love that. And I think you're right. Like, you don't have to be in a relationship to look at this and learn from it. I'm going to get it so that I could show up in my best way possible with all the knowledge and all the resources. I love it. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. And I think people are really going to gain a lot from it. So this has been so enlightening because I love this particular topic. And just so it's of real interest to me. And I'm glad you guys bring it forward in a way that people can relate to it and understand. And I love how vulnerable you've been about sharing your struggles and your triumphs. And I feel like people can now look at their difficulties and then look forward, see people like you and say, hey, you know what? If we put enough work into this, we could be there one day too. So hopefully you're going to take that divorce rate down from 50 or 60%, whatever it is right now, hopefully down like to half. Wouldn't that be nice? I'd love to see that.
Yes.
Yes. And thank you so much, Dr. Kalpana, for all the work that you're doing for bringing truth and awareness to the world, especially for women. We are such a fan of yours as well. And we hope one day to interview you to our community so you can share much of your love and wisdom as well.
I would love that. It would be my absolute pleasure. This has been wonderful. And thank you again for, joining us because you're East Coast time and I'm Pacific. So it's later for you guys. Have a fabulous week ahead. I feel blessed to have had you on the show. And, maybe later on we'll do it again because there's always things that come up in time. So I would love that.
Absolutely, Dr. Kalpana. Thank you so much for all the amazing work you are doing. And we're just so grateful we've connected. And thank you, everyone, for plugging in. It has been such an honor and humbling to be here today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And also a big thanks to Diane, who introduced us.
Yes, Diane, if you're watching, thank you, Divatori.
Yes. It's like I was blanking on her last name, so thank you for reminding me. But a big thanks to Diane for introducing us. I get introduced to the most amazing people from the most amazing people, and I'm grateful for that. So have a blessed evening, and continue doing all these amazing things that you're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Kalpana.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. What a lovely couple. See, I feel like they show us that it is possible. So many times we just get stuck in our own stuff and we feel that things are just not possible. So I love seeing couples like that because honestly, it really restores my faith in the whole, being married again and being in a relationship, et cetera, et cetera. So next week, I actually have a guest. Her name is Laura. I actually have a guest, like I always have a guest. Her name is Laura Richards. And she had a very difficult time in her marriage too, but she was married to a narcissist. Now, I do believe there are some times when you do have to leave a marriage, and that would probably be one of them. So she's going to share her story about how she, dealt with issues within the marriage, how it made her feel. So it's really an enlightening story. And obviously the word narcissist these days is quite the buzzword. So keep an eye out for our next episode. Again, I'm happy to be back in the States and have integrated that wonderful experience that I had in Europe. And we will see you next week on another episode of Gloves Off.